Good evening, President Boulay, trustees, Dr. Nicholas. Thank you for having me here this evening to talk about student enrollment and placement. So when we look at our student enrollment across sites, we have a big variation with Lambertville Elementary School, our oldest and smallest campus at 159 students, to our largest elementary school, Hanson, with 915. We have Bethany that continues to kind of buck the norms. As one of our older campuses, having opened in 2007, it continues to have one of the higher enrollment counts, despite being one of our older campuses. And then all the way to our high school with 2,557 students, giving us a total enrollment currently just under 8,050 students. So when we look at enrollment tracking, all of the applications are submitted through Aries Air, and through that system, we're able to track when they've been received, which they're dated and time-stamped. In addition to that, we're able to monitor that not only the initial receipt, but when they've been returned, received again, and sometimes it goes back and forth a few times. And that's in addition to any communication emails from the student services team directly. An enrollment is considered complete once all of the required documents have been submitted. So that's verification of address, all of the documents that we need, birth certificate, all of those items. And then once that enrollment is solidified, that's the date that's used to place a student on a wait list. So for example, if we had an application that was submitted February 5th, let's say, but it was not supported by all the necessary documents until July, that student's enrollment date would not be until July. So our class sizes by grade level, so TK is a 20:2 ratio with a classroom teacher and an instructional aide. K3 is 24:1, 4th through 8th grade, 32:1, and then over to our high school with a 35:1 ratio. So when students enroll in our district, our goal as a student services team is to always place them at their school of residence. However, based on the available space that we have, which is determined by staffing when it's done at the end of the school year, students may be overflowed to another school site. The goal again is to place them at the closest overflow site that has available space at their required grade level. Unfortunately, for some of our students, they may be overflowed for more than one school year. The students that are on overflow status are also tracked in Aries with the goal of returning them at the end of a school year in preparation for the next school year, assuming that there's available space. When space does become available at a school of residence, the family is contacted to see if they would like to move their student. If they prefer to keep their student at the overflow site, they are provided the opportunity to submit an intra-district transfer request to either continue out that school year or to go into the next school year. And then those are approved on space available as well. So looking at our overflow numbers, there's a big outlier, an obvious outlier, that's Cordes Elementary School. So they have 120 students that are on overflow. It's important to note that of that 120 students, 76 of those students are TK, as we do not have space for any TK students at Cordes Elementary School. Since the start of the school year, we've returned 28 students back to their school of residence. We also had 31 students whose parent or guardian declined to return to their school of residence. They got settled after the first few days of school and they've opted to stay at their overflow school site, and so they would go through the transfer request. Unfortunately, we do have some families that have split students at two different school sites perhaps. And then again, some outliers there. So you see Cordes Elementary School has 47 families that have split students. Of that 47, 41 of those are TK siblings. Next to that is not quite the same high number, but Cuesta, 14 of their 18 are kindergarten students. We just didn't have enough space for the kindergarten students for those families. The next part is an observation that I will mention as a little bit of a heavy heart. As a former teacher at Lambertville Elementary School and a very proud former principal, some of our families are split by choice because they do not want the two siblings placed at the same school, which a school of placement would be Lambertville. And that is based off of what they perceive as the aesthetics of the school or how long of a commute it is to get to Lambertville Elementary School. Of course, the student services staff does a wonderful job communicating the high quality instruction that happens there, the fantastic staff. And the real observation that oftentimes when students are overflowed there, they opt to stay at Lammersville. So that is just something important to note here, that some families would prefer to have their students split than be placed over at Lammersville Elementary School, as it's not part of within Mountain House. For our inter-district transfers, again, that's a transfer agreement between the boards of two different districts, oftentimes for us, Manteca, Tracy, Ripon, valid for 1 year, and we have different priorities. So students that have active military personnel family members, specifically their parent or guardian, or if they've been identified as a victim or an investigation as a victim of bullying, they would be given priority. And so again, those are the lists that come forward nearly every board meeting. In addition to that, other considerations are childcare, if a student is going to be finishing out a graduation or a promotion year, so either as an 8th grade student or a senior, to make sure that they're staying with that cohort of students, if they're going to be out of our district for less than a year, and then the Allen Bill. So currently we have just under 110 employee students who had an inter or an intra-district transfer request approved this school year. And so that allows their students to either go at the school where they are working or a school in close proximity to where they're working. And that allows us to keep high quality candidates, whether it's our teachers, our instructional aides, our food service workers, our custodians, any of the staff members would have the opportunity to submit that. And then to date, we have done denials of 68 inter-district transfers, largely due for space, or sometimes it might be a renewal that we decline for one of the following reasons: a violation of school or state laws, unsatisfactory attendance, unsatisfactory discipline, and then unsatisfactory academic progress. So that would be if it was a new request, we would just deny it outright from the get-go, or if it's a student that hasn't been meeting our expectation here for our district, then we would go ahead and deny that for the next school year. And that communication happens prior to the end of the year, like that if they were to submit another inter-district transfer, that it would not be approved. So I have provided some scenarios. These are all scenarios that are real for our district. And so scenario 1, a family enrolls with a 2nd, 4th, and 7th grade students. There's no place for the 2nd grade student at the school of residence. So all 3 students could be placed at the same overflow site. Or another option would be the 4th and the 7th are placed at their school of residence, and the 2nd grade student is placed on the overflow list to then be returned as soon as there's space available at that grade level, either in that school year or the following school year, whenever that space comes up. Scenario 2 is a family enrolls 2 students, 3rd and 5th, no space for either student. Again, both can be placed on the same overflow site, also placed on the overflow list, or the students can be placed at 2 separate school sites. So when we have placements, either like scenario 1, scenario 2, or the next 2 that I'm going to share, those are communications with the family about what would you like to do. These are the options. We have option 1, option 2, option 3 sometimes. We try to get as creative as possible to support the families. Scenario 3 would be a family enrolls with a 1st and 5th grader. There's no space. Both students, again, could go to the same school site, or space becomes available for the 1st grader. The parent accepts the return and then decides to split the students. Could happen. The parent calls 2 days later asking for the 1st grade student to be returned again to the overflow site. True story, we had one family change their mind 4 times about whether the student was going to be returned, not returned, returned, not returned. So the student, end of the story is, the student actually ended up staying at their overflow site. And then into scenario 4, dates are so important for student enrollment for a variety of reasons. So family number 1 submits an IDA on July 29th, family 2, August 1st, family 3, August 4th. Seems very boom, boom, boom. In the meantime, student enrollment during this particular time of year, we're getting enrollments all the time. So in between families 2 submission and family 3 submission, we had more enrollments for the necessary school site. So the result would be that family 1 and 2 got their IDAs approved. Family 3 did not, just because in that little bit, those few days, more student enrollments come in. It is not uncommon during the peak for us to come in as a student services team and to have received upwards of 25, 30 enrollments overnight. So family number 3, good news is our enrollment fluctuates throughout the school year, so there is an opportunity for us to go ahead and approve that IDA at a later date in the school year. Any questions?